I really want you to picture an ant right now. Just a tiny ant, actually smaller than a sesame seed. And I want you to imagine that she just did something that until the year 2006, scientists flat out did not think any animal besides us could do. She taught a one-on-one class.
Right, one single student, one highly specific lesson.
Yeah, and when her student falls behind, she doesn't just keep walking. Like, she doesn't just leave a trail of scent and hope for the best. She stops. She completely freezes. And she waits. It's not, a glitch in her programming, and it is definitely not a random pause. It is a responsive, interactive lesson plan.
And honestly, the wildest part is that this exact lesson plan is running right now in the cracks of loose rocks, probably within a mile of where you were sitting.
Which is just mind-blowing. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at this incredible source article today called The World's Tiniest Teacher: How Ants Run a Classroom. And our mission today is to extract this one wild fact that is going to completely change how you look at the ground outside your house. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because if we have this incredibly sophisticated behavior happening right beneath our feet, we have to look at the environment that forces it to happen, right?
Exactly, yeah. We were talking specifically about the rock ant here.
Yeah.
And from the research, they don't live in those massive, towering, complicated mounds you see in nature documentaries.
Right, not the swarms of millions of ants.
No, not at all. Their ecology is entirely different. They live inside literally paper flat cracks and loose stones and rock formations. It is a very confined, intimate setting. We're talking about a colony size of maybe 100 ants in total.
Oh, wow. So it's a mom and pop shop.
Exactly. It's a mom and pop shop, not a sprawling underground mega corporation with millions of disposable workers. Every single individual matters.
Which means if you have this tight-knit, highly vulnerable group of 100 ants living in a fragile rock, their home situation is pretty precarious. Like, a rock splits, the temperature drops, or a predator gets too close, and suddenly that paper flat crack is a death trap. They have to move.
Right, and moving is the absolute most dangerous thing a tiny colony can do. They are totally exposed. So they send out scouts. One single ant will wander out into the surrounding area, navigating the terrain, until she finds it. The perfect new rock.
The ultimate upgrade.
Exactly. She evaluates the floor space, the darkness, the size of the entrance, and she decides, yeah, this is the new home.
Now see, if a normal ant finds a massive pile of sugar on my kitchen counter, within 20 minutes, there is a superhighway of ants marching in a perfect line. I would expect the rock ant scout to just lay down a massive chemical alarm bell, run home, and trigger a mass migration, like a giant group text.
Yeah, that is the standard assumption. Pheromone trails are basically the bread and butter of ant communication. But laying down a massive pheromone trail is noisy. It's volatile. The scent evaporates quickly, and worse, it can attract competitors or predators directly to the colony's new safe house. So she bypasses the group text entirely.
She goes back to the crumbling rock and she picks one ant, just one. And she takes that ant and only that ant on a private one-on-one walking tour to the new spot. So an ant runs a real lesson with a real student one-on-one.
Yeah, the scientific literature actually refers to this behavior as a tandem run.
Wait, a tandem run. So let's avoid the science jargon. You just mean a tiny, highly exclusive field trip, class size of one.
Essentially, yes. Two ants walking together. One is leading the way, and the naive ant of the student is following closely behind. But it is the physical mechanics of how they move together that completely upended the scientific understanding of animal communication.
Right, because this isn't just an ant wandering around while another ant happens to be nearby. The teacher is actively monitoring the student. She takes a few steps forward and then she stops completely.
She does not move a single leg.
Right, she just stands there, totally frozen, waiting. So the teacher waits. She stops and freezes if her student falls behind.
And she will not take another step until the student ant catches up, reaches forward with her antenna, and physically taps the teacher on her hind legs.
It is a physical feedback loop. Like, the student is tapping the teacher to say, okay, I'm right here behind you, go ahead. Which implies the teacher must have specific sensory receptors on her back legs, just waiting for that exact physical input.
She does. The hind legs are covered in tiny mechanoreceptors. They are highly sensitive hairs that can detect the precise tactile pressure of another ant's antenna. It is a purely physical back-and-forth conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, only after she feels that specific tap does the teacher take a few more steps. Then she stops again and waits for the tap again, over and over, across the entire journey.
Okay, I know the natural temptation is to view bugs as, like, organic robots. We assume they just run blind scripts where visual input A automatically leads to output B, like I see an ant behind me, therefore I walk. But if they are constantly adjusting their pace to match the student's delays, that is real-time state-dependent communication. So they aren't just running a mindless script, they are literally listening and obeying.
They absolutely are. It is a highly responsive conversation. Biologists actually share that exact same skepticism you have. They wanted to prove whether this was a true responsive exchange or just a visual reflex. So they set up an experiment in the lab to test it. They temporarily removed the ant's ability to see entirely by painting over their eyes.
Wait, I really need to pause on the logistics of that. How do you even pull that off in a laboratory? An ant is a fraction of the size of a sesame seed. You can't exactly wrap a tiny cloth around its head to blindfold it.
It requires extreme precision, as you can imagine. Researchers use micromanipulators under high-powered microscopes. They basically take a single bristle from a specialized brush, dip it in a microscopic droplet of harmless, opaque acrylic paint, and carefully apply it directly over the ant's compound eyes.
That is insane. So it essentially plunges the ant into total darkness without harming it.
What's fascinating here is that even with their vision completely disabled, the lesson still worked.
It still worked.
It worked perfectly. The tandem run proceeded without a single hitch. The entire transfer of knowledge is done in the dark, entirely by feel.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the communication relies on that tactile capping mechanism, meaning they are quite literally feeling their way through the dangerous terrain together, building a shared map of the world.
It is basically the world's tiniest buddy system, done entirely blindfolded. The sheer trust and intentionality of that is staggering, but it also raises a massive question about the word teaching, because we see animals lead each other all the time, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Like a mother duck leads her ducklings across a road. But if a duckling gets distracted and wanders off, that is kind of on the duckling. The mother isn't constantly pausing to evaluate the duckling's spatial awareness.
Exactly, and that distinction is exactly why the scientific community is incredibly stingy with the word teach. For decades, biologists refused to use that word for anything other than humans, because humans have a habit of anthropomorphizing.
We project our own emotions onto them.
Right. We project our intentions onto animals. If an older sibling is playing a video game and a younger sibling watches them and figures out how to play, the older sibling wasn't teaching. They were just playing a game, and the younger one happened to learn.
So the scientists had to create a ruthless, objective test to strip away all the human emotion. They needed a strict checklist to prove an animal is actually running a classroom.
They established a rigorous three-part test for true teaching. Criterion number 1. The behavior must only occur in the presence of a naive observer, a completely clueless learner.
Which makes sense. The rock ant only initiates this tandem run for ants who have no idea where the new rock is. She doesn't do it for ants who have already been there.
Right. Criterion number 2. The behavior must cost the teacher something. I have to carry a penalty, with no immediate tangible reward for the teacher herself.
I am assuming there is a hard evolutionary reason for this, like you don't risk your life out in the open unless the return on investment is massive. So how did scientists actually measure the cost to the teacher?
They designed what is informally known as the kidnapping experiment. Researchers wanted to know how the teacher's biological algorithm handles a total loss of connection. So right in the middle of this meticulous step-by-step walk, they took a pair of precision tweezers and purposely pulled the student ant away.
Whoa, they just removed her from the board.
Literally plucked her right off the terrain.
See, if she is just running a simple instinctual script to get from point A to point B, you would expect her to just, feel the loss of contact, shrug, abandon the lesson, and sprint to the safety of the new rock.
But she doesn't. She stops stock still. And she waits. And the fascinating part is the mechanism of that waiting. She appears to run an internal stopwatch. She will stand there, totally exposed, running a localized search pattern to give the student ample time to find her way back.
Okay, but how does a creature with a microscopic brain run a stopwatch? It's not like she has a prefrontal cortex silently counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Right, no, it is highly likely driven by a neurochemical decay rate. When the tapping stops, a specific chemical signal in their nervous system begins to slowly dissipate. As long as that chemical is present above a certain threshold, she remains in waiting mode. Once the chemical degrades completely, which takes a couple of minutes, the timer expires, and she finally gives up and moves on.
I really want you to imagine the sheer cost of that delay. Think about a 20-minute commute to work. Now imagine that every single day, you have to personally walk a brand new coworker to the office, step by step.
Well, that would be awful.
You can't just text them the map on Google. You have to walk them there, completely on foot, stopping every 3 feet, looking backward the whole time to make sure they are still right behind you.
And if they stop to tie their shoe, you have to freeze in the middle of a busy intersection and just wait for them. It's a massive drain on your time and energy.
It is a phenomenal cost because walking solo, a rock ant is incredibly fast. She knows the route. She could sprint to that new rock in a matter of seconds. But walking a student makes her several times slower. She is out in the open, highly vulnerable to birds, to spiders, and the elements, absorbing all of that risk without getting extra food or a higher status or pay in the colony. So it costs her. She is slower and more exposed doing it, and she gets absolutely nothing back.
Which perfectly satisfies the second criterion of the test. She pays a steep price to alter her behavior, purely for the benefit of the follower. Which brings us to the third and final criterion. Because of this costly interaction, the learner must pick up the skill or knowledge significantly faster than they would have on their own.
Right, there has to be a measurable return on investment for the colony, or evolution would have just bred this behavior out of them millions of years ago. So how much does this blindfolded buddy system actually speed up the students' learning?
Researchers quantified this by testing control groups. They took naive ants and forced them to find the new rock completely on their own, with no teacher, just wandering the environment, searching by trial and error. Those solo ants took 50% longer to locate the new home compared to the ants who received the private one-on-one lesson.
50%. Imagine being half as good at everything in your life just because nobody ever showed you how. That is the fundamental gap between the ant who was taught and the ant left to figure it out the hard way. A 50% delay in finding shelter could easily mean the death of that individual ant.
Oh, absolutely. For a colony of only 100 individuals, losing even 5 or 10 ants to predators while they wander around lost is catastrophic. The value of that spatial information is literally life or death.
Given the sheer complexity of this, like a neurochemical stopwatch, a tactile feedback loop, real-time pace adjustment, and intense risk assessment, you would naturally assume this requires massive cognitive architecture. I was fully assuming there was a little six-legged Einstein operating inside that exoskeleton.
Yeah, and that assumption ruled behavioral biology for decades. We naturally linked complex social behaviors, especially teaching, to massive brain sizes. But the reality of the rock ant is really humbling. Their entire brain is smaller than a single grain of salt.
Wait, a brain smaller than a grain of salt is running a responsive, state-dependent algorithm? Do we know the actual neuron count?
We do. A rock ant has roughly 250,000 brain cells.
That's nothing.
To put that in perspective, a common fruit fly has about 100,000, so it is a tiny brain, even by insect standards. Meanwhile, you listening to this right now have roughly 86 billion neurons. You have over 300,000 times the processing power of the creature that just executed a flawless, responsive lesson plan.
So, what does this all mean? How is that mathematically possible? How does 250,000 neurons pull off something we thought required a mammalian cortex?
It comes down to highly specialized neural circuits. They don't have general intelligence, right? An ant cannot ponder philosophy or learn to play the piano. But evolution has hardwired an incredibly dense, efficient neural pathway, specifically dedicated to this one task, transferring spatial data. It is a masterpiece of biological engineering that doesn't waste a single cell on unnecessary processing.
Which completely upends how we view intelligence. When scientists Nigel Franks and Tom Richardson published this research in 2006, declaring this the first proven back-and-forth lesson in any non-human animal, it must have sent shockwaves through the field.
Oh, it was a massive paradigm shift. We had spent years looking for true teaching in chimpanzees, in dolphins, in dog species with massive complex brains. And the first time we definitively proved it with that strict 3-part checklist, it was in a creature that lives under a pebble.
It proves that teaching was never about being the smartest creature in the room. We always treated teaching as the ultimate flex of a big brain species. We assumed you needed massive cognitive horsepower to actively recognize another individual's lack of knowledge and step in to correct it. But her brain is tinier than a grain of salt, and she still pulls it off. So teaching was never about being smart. It's about caring enough to get it right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the rock ant demonstrates that teaching is an evolutionary adaptation, not an IQ test. If the information like, our rock is collapsing and the safe house is this way, is so critical that the colony will die without it, nature forces a solution. You don't need a massive brain to teach. You just need the evolutionary pressure to care enough to get it right.
The survival of their entire genetic line depends on the patience of that one teacher. It is a brilliant distributed survival strategy, and it really makes you reevaluate the world right outside your door. We walk around expecting nature to be driven by blunt, simple, selfish instincts, every bug for itself.
We severely underestimate the complexity of the microworld. The algorithms running in these tiny nervous systems are facilitating profound acts of cooperation that frankly rival anything we do in our own schools.
Which is exactly why I want to leave you with this final thought. Forget the neuron counts and the chemical decay rates for a second. I want you to picture the exact image from the source material. Somewhere out there, right now, maybe in the dirt right outside your house, inside a crack in a rock, smaller than your thumbnail, in total pitch black darkness, an ant is standing completely still.
She isn't stuck. She isn't lost.
No, she is waiting. She is waiting for someone who is slower than her, someone who doesn't know the way yet. She has absolutely no concept of patience. She has no word for sacrifice or empathy or duty. No one is watching her do this. No one will ever thank her for it. But she does it anyway, for as long as it takes. Let that sit.
And that leaves us with a truly provocative question to turn over in our own massive brains. If a creature with a brain the size of a grain of salt is out there right now, displaying this profound level of dedication simply because the work must be done, what other incredible, complex, human-level acts of connection are happening right beneath our feet in the dirt, entirely unnoticed by us?
We are quite literally walking over miracles every single day. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the rock ant. If this shifted your perspective as much as it shifted ours, take a second right now, text a friend, and just say, you have to hear this. Keep looking down and keep asking questions. We will see you next time.